Due to some personal reasons, is running late tonight. Our agenda calls for a special meeting on the requested special use permit from the Hotel Hinton LLC. And I think in fairness to all the parties, the general public, and also the applicant, we need to see if Mr. Sellers can get here in time for that. So I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda to move the special meeting to a different part of our meeting tonight.
And I'll make that motion, and I'll also make a part of that to remove C, which is the landscaping maintenance contract. I think we have some more work to do on that. So I'll put that in form of a motion. Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor of amending the agenda as proposed by Councilman Dixon? Aye. Okay. That motion carries, and so I know the majority of you are here tonight for that special meeting. And again, in fairness to everyone, I think it's best to wait until Councilman Sellers gets here so we can have our full complement of council members here. Also, I would like to open tonight's meeting by having a moment of silence on behalf of Eddie Fields and Melissa Fields. Most of you know them. They are the host of the Saturday night vinyl night at Edenton Bay Trading Company here in downtown Edenton, and they are wonderful ambassadors for the town of Edenton. And Melissa was in a terrible accident on Saturday night, and we just wanted to make sure that we honor them and let them know that we're thinking about them. So just a brief moment of silence if you could join me. Thank you for allowing me, and the rest of us had an opportunity, and we will continue to keep the Fields family in our thoughts and prayers. The first order of business under the amended agenda that we have tonight is the Creating Outdoor Recreation Economies Project Memorandum of Understanding, and Dwayne Wilton, our Assistant Town Manager, has been working on that. And Dwayne, are you present?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you come forward and give us more information on that?
So we've been working on this for some time. So this is a memorandum of understanding between Old County Department of Commerce, Rural Economic Development Division, Main Street Rural Planning Center, the Rural Planning Program, and the town of Edenton. With this, the state and town will be setting out the terms and understandings between the parties for the program to provide creating outdoor recreation economies services to the town. This initiative is intended to leverage the town's abundant outdoor recreation assets to bolster so the primary services to be provided by the program for the core project in Edenton include outdoor recreation asset mapping, outdoor recreation economy, strategic planning, and asset development and other planned implementation services. The program will provide its core project services and final project work products at no cost to the town. The project will be scheduled to begin upon receipt of the program of this signed memorandum of understanding, and I will be the point of contact for the state, for the town through the state.
And Dwayne, both you and Corey Gooden recommend that we approve this memorandum of understanding. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Does anybody have any questions for Dwayne?
One, I guess just since it's been such a while, we kind of provide us with a little bit of information on as far as what we expect some of the outcome to be with this program, what we're looking into.
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, the council approved a memorandum of understanding for this particular program. There was a retirement and some shuffling around in the state, and they wanted to update the memorandum of understanding. So this will basically be looking at our assets to see what we have. I'll be placing the stakeholders, committee together with local nonprofits and citizens, that have an interest in outdoor recreation. Basically looking at kayaks, hiking trails. This plan will help us get further funding in the future through grants, through the state and federal government.
Any other comments or questions?
So this is just like an overall view of what we need to do to give more recreational opportunities to our residents.
That's correct, yeah. I mean, they look at horseback riding, ATV trails, a little bit of everything. We're one of 34 counties that were or communities that were selected throughout the state to participate in this program. So it's going to be a unique outcome. They'll look at our peers, they'll look at us and what we have in assets, and we'll drop a plan out of what the community wants.
And that includes Hayes, which
That
is,
would include Hayes, which is annexed, so that'll include any open space, town, county-owned, county would be involved, so.
Dwayne, how did we get selected? How did we get selected?
It was 2 years ago, I put in, some application, and I think it was selected through that type of process.
Thank you.
Particularly for us, it's worth noting that the timing on this makes a lot of sense when you think about the last year and a half worth of upfits that's been done in some of the passive and the active parks. And so for us, it gives us a chance to revisit some work that's been completed, now add that to our Parks and Rec kind of portfolio of what's out there. So I think not only will we update the paperwork here with the MOU, I think the improvements that we've seen over the last year should also be shared with the group.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Thank you, Dwayne. So I would entertain a motion that we approve this memorandum of understanding.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and second. Any further discussion among council? There appearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have approved that memorandum of understanding. As previously noted in Councilman Dixon's motion, we will table item C for further work and further consideration. That moves us to item D, which is the updated salary schedule, and I'll hand this over to Corey Good.
Thank you, Mayor. If you remember at our last meeting, we had approved the job description for the electric utility line clearance worker. At that time also, from the previous agenda, we had some questions regarding the salary grade 18. At that time, the council asked for us to delay that consideration until we were able to have a little further discussion with our electric director around some of the job duties for that position, as well as to also share some salary data that we had. If you remember in your agenda packet, we did provide data from the North Carolina League of Municipalities, and in that packet, we explicitly noted which municipalities provided electric service as well as ones that hadn't. There was not a way to correctly identify if they were a part of their electric versus public works from that, or at least if they didn't have electric service provided, that would remove the ones that we could assume that were a part of whatever landscaping or public works crew versus electric. We've also reached out to electricities to try to get some updated salary data around this, which we have not received yet. But Hunter Chamberlain's here with us tonight to go back through some of the questions and concerns that council may have had about this particular salary grade.
And as you recall, we did table this from an earlier meeting to give us all the opportunity to look into this a little bit further and to ask questions, and now would be our opportunity to talk with Hunter about those questions, if any still remain.
Hunter, the main duties if you had to give a percentage, is it more of the tree trimming or more of the,
The main duties will be tree trimming, and it will be tree trimming in live power lines. That this periodic, or will be, 90% of the time, they are trimming power lines. Hot primary power lines, 7,200 volts, all the time. Obviously, storms, hurricanes come, when things like that happen, we'll have our tree crew on site. But a one-off of that is that they would be right there, and we want qualified candidates. We don't want, somebody off the street that says, hey, I'll cut that tree down for you, and they drop it on the power line and cause a bigger issue. With getting qualified candidates, we're looking at it as if we have a storm, or if we have something come up, that this tree utility line clearance position is going to be the supervisor of that entity within inside the electric department.
Are you saying that 10% of the time would be more as a second-class lineman?
Well, we qualified them as a second-class lineman due to the fact that they're gonna spend 90% of their time in hot primary lines. Our third-class linemen don't go in primary lines without having a first-class lineman, a foreman, a supervisor with them. This person would be acting as that supervisor, and they would be the ones, cutting in the thick of it, is like I like to say. There's gonna be times that, there'll be a limb on the line, and you wouldn't send just anybody up there to remove that line, because it could cause more harm than it could good. But primarily, our goal is to have a true tree crew in Edenton available to run 365 days a year. Right now, we are able to cut trees maybe 6 months out of the year, maybe. We have spots that if we don't cut them every single year, they're gonna be right back in the line. And we're cutting, 10, 15 feet off, and we just got that much growth. This year, we had a wet, warm year, and things have just shot out on us.
But you don't need the credentials to be a tree trimmer or underbrush cleanup guy, correct? You don't need the credentials that a lineman has, is that right?
They're specific to the tree side. Somebody that has the knowledge of a lineman is obviously, they're gonna be better at this. They're gonna be safer, for one thing. They're gonna keep themselves away from an issue. If I go get, and I don't ask my young guys that are third-class linemen to go up there and do things like that. It's gonna be a first-class lineman, a second-class lineman, because we don't, there's years and years and years of experience. With the tree crew industry, it's more specific to what they do, but I would say that they do have the knowledge of a second-class lineman. Yes, sir.
So I guess that's partially my concern comes down to selecting the salary grade. For instance, we have a public works guy who we require he holds a CDL Class A license. Starting pay for that average is about $60,000 to $70,000. Is he compensated at $60,000 to $70,000? Absolutely not, because that's not his primary role. He makes a trip up to wherever in Virginia, but once or twice a month. So that's 10% of his salary, of his job description would be driving a truck, 18-wheeler. So same thing with this, if it's 10% of their work, I can't justify, a pay grade 18 because it's only 10%. Does he have the credentials? Absolutely. And he'll be utilized in some capacity, but not at 100%. To me, it'll be insulting for that particular employee who's in public works who also cuts trees or drives a truck, or even the lineman who, so we have a class one or whatever it's called, lineman. First class, there you go.
Yes, sir.
So we have him, and, you know, to me, if you're not performing at 100% full-time as a lineman, then again, I can't see compensating them at, you know, that rate. It's a little insulting.
And the only thing I would say to that is that this person is a supervisor. They are, you know, they're not gonna be with us on a day-to-day basis. They're gonna be driving a CDL vehicle. They're gonna be pulling a chipper around town. The person who's cutting in the bucket is also gonna be the person who's responsible for the man on the ground. So, is it gonna be a supervisor per se? It's not, no, it's not my line supervisor, but it is gonna be the tree trimming supervisor. And would I ask somebody from Public Works to get up and cut these lines in the power line? Absolutely not. Because that's me asking to put somebody in danger, and I can't do that. And that's where the compensation comes into play from that aspect, is that they will have to have the knowledge of a second-class lineman, and they will be performing tasks that a second-class lineman could do. But it's more specific to their line of work instead of our line of work.
Hunter, I got a question or a clarification on your math. So the very large majority of this position's time will be spent on tree trimming.
It will.
However, 90% of that tree trimming is in and around
Yes, sir.
roads.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I guess, number one, I've been on this thing almost 30 years, we've never done this, this is a brand new. We've never questioned, you know, pay grades and all that, I mean, that's what it seems like, that's management. But it seems like to me that what I'm hearing is, you need to have this salary so you can get somebody qualified that won't hurt themselves, won't hurt the lines,
Yes, sir.
and won't hurt the people on the ground. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's what that sounds like to me, I mean,
That's 100% correct.
To go along with what you're saying, if it was a lower pay grade by one or two, you still have the authority to bring that person, have a range to go to.
Right.
So
Right.
you can still do that.
And to piggyback off of that, I agree, it's like previous positions that we approved, it's to the discretion of the department head, town manager, and HR. Have a little discretion, say, hey, look, this person brings X amount of years of experience, then we don't have to start them off at that bottom grade, even if we were to approve something lower. And then I know we've had some discussions on potentially doing some salary studies, pretty soon on all positions. To me, that's an opportunity that we can explore, but like I said, I don't see where it's fair being an employee who performs another duty at the same rate, 10%, 20%, or whatever, to be compensated the full rate of a second-class lineman.
I'm looking for that scale again. What is the difference between 17 and 18?
So,
Actually, 16 and 18 is about
Correct.
$5,000 difference a year.
5,000?
Starting, about 5,000%.
So one thing to consider there, if we, you know, as a rule of thumb, we do not allow anyone who is not at least a second-class lineman to be unsupervised, to be there. So if we choose to have this position at a lower rate, one of the things to take into consideration if we get flooded with applications that are third-class linemen, and that's what we're paying, which is very likely that that's what we'll see. This still would require some type of supervisor there with the person that's in that bucket, as well as the groundman or potentially the electric director. So the difference in the 5,000 from 16 to 18 can very easily be absorbed by not having that higher ranking employee there with them. So just one thing to note there.
Has everyone asked the questions of the administration and Hunter as you needed? Everybody good? Okay.
Can I mention, say on it? I know you raised a concern as well, I think.
I did, and I was able to get some more clarification in the meantime, between the meetings. And so I know I missed what you said, I apologize for that. However, I think my questions were answered.
All right, everyone has had the opportunity to ask questions. The salary grade that has been recommended to us by management and administration is a salary grade 18. So because of that, I will seek and entertain a motion to approve this position for salary grade 18.
I'll make that motion.
Is there any second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and second. We had a lot of discussion before we got the motion and second, and I appreciate Hunter coming before us tonight. Any further comments? I think we've made everything, all the comments known that we need to. So I'll call for a vote on this action. All in favor of the motion to approve the salary grade 18, please signify by saying aye. Okay, all opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, so just to double check, we've got 4 ayes and 2 noes, is that correct? Okay, and Councilman Miller, did you vote nay?
I vote no.
Okay, just for the record, and Councilman Constant.
Correct.
Okay, all right, so that motion carries by 4 to 2 vote. Okay, and what I'm going to recommend, Councilman Sellers is here now, but to keep the flow of the meeting going, and based on Councilman Dixon's motion to amend, we're going to move through with the final 2 items on our agenda, and we'll circle back around to the special meeting. The next agenda item is consideration of the amendment to the town manager's employment contract. As a part of the existing contract, town council and the town manager are required each year to conduct an annual performance and salary review. The town council completed the performance review in June, and since that time have had salary reviews, and the proposed amendment to the contract would amend the annual salary of the town manager to $124,440. To get this on before discussion, I would entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Okay. Do we have a motion and a second from this side? Okay, any discussion on this matter? Okay, there appearing to be no discussion. All in favor of the amendment to the contract for the annual salary for our town manager to be the amount of $124,440, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries also. Next, we have our committee meetings, and the only committee that has items before us tonight is Administration Committee, chaired by Councilwoman Miller. So Craig, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. We only have one item tonight, and it has to do with the 2024 Internal Revenue Service mileage rate increase. The updated 2024 IRS mileage reimbursement rate for business use has increased from 65.5 cents per mile to 67 cents per mile. Town staff has recommended the approval of this revised mileage reimbursement rate. Administrative Committee suggests forwarding this rate increase recommendation to full council at our next council meeting.
Thank you, and that concludes the business of the Administration Committee. And now we move to the special hearing and the public hearing. I'd like to open the public hearing, and it's for the consideration of public hearing case number major SUP 24-01, entitled A Major Special Use Permit from Hotel Hinton LLC. The major special use permit from Hotel Hinton LLC is for the proposed use of hotel suites, residence, short to long-term rentals, and retail at 113 East King Street, otherwise known as the existing Hotel Hinton building, is further identified by Chowan County PIN number 7804-07-68-9504. We've got a order that we follow when we consider special use permits, and that order begins with a presentation of the staff reports, and Dwayne Wilton will present the staff report to us tonight. Dwayne?
for Hotel LLC, 113 East King Street. Zoning is commercial downtown. In your, in the staff report, you'll see the existing land use classifications, plan goals, and objectives. I went in and pulled out the goals and policies that match 4 criteria that the town identified in its land use and development plan. Was encourage population growth, promote economic development, provide recreation open space, and foster housing choices. For the analysis, the application before you is requesting to renovate existing building for mixed use to include hotel suites, extended and short-term stay residences, and retail in the commercial downtown zoning district. The town of Edenton's Unified Development Ordinance allows for the use of hotel and the other uses through the major special use permit process, which is what we're going through now. The major special use permit process requires applicants to specify the proposed use of the land and allows the town council to place restrictions on the actual development. This is an appropriate planning mechanism. When granting major special use permit, reasonable requirements may be added to the permit in addition to those specified in this report. So the Edenton Planning Board held a public meeting on August 5th, 2024 to review this permit application. The planning board recommended approval of the application as presented. The staff recommended conditions and the addition of 1 condition. So prior to approval, the town council must ensure the development at its proposed location meets following criteria. 1 through 4 is shown in the agenda. Non-endanger public health or safety, will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting property, be in harmony with the area in which it is located, and be in conformity with the land use plan, thoroughfare plan, and other plan officially adopted by town council. The proposed use is compatible with the Edenton future land use plan, as shown in a map included in your staff report, and identifies the parcels in the surrounding area. For those 7 conditions that staff recommended, and the 1 additional one you'll find out on the last page, be all necessary improvements to include utility installation and connections, including electric, water, sewer, stormwater, or town standards. All details and improvements, including but not limited to facades, signage, infrastructure, sidewalks, landscaping, lighting, shall be installed and constructed according to UDO requirements. Exterior renovations or changes are subject to review and approval by the Edenton Historic Preservation Commission and/or National Park Service and/or Preservation of North Carolina. The project must follow the NPS Part 2 scheduled completion timeframe. No other uses other than that approved as overnight rentals, short-term rentals, and rentals 1 year or less. Condominium use is not permitted. Both dedicated commercial retail space will require approval in accordance with UDO. All lodging use will be applicable to all North Carolina state statutes for property management, and the owner shall report progress at staff every 3 months, and the information reported to town council on progress being made on the project. Staff does find the proposed use to be in conformity with the Edenton land use plan and offers the following consistency statement, which is what you would go by, including the goals and policies listed below.
Yeah, I've got a question of our attorney. Mr. Ellis, would it be proper for us, as each presentation be made, to ask questions of that particular presenter?
Sure.
Does council have any questions of Dwayne? No questions, okay. All right, Dwayne, thank you. The second order of business in this public hearing would be presentation from the applicant. I know that we have the owner, Sumit Gupta, here, also the project architect. I've been informed is going to be here, and also Representative Maggie Craig of Preservation North Carolina. And I guess those people can present in whatever order the applicant and owner wants them to present, but we would open the floor now to the presentation from the applicant.
You might want to put them under oath.
All right, Sumit, raise your right hand. Do you swear that your testimony tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Sumit Gupta. I'm representing this SUV application. I appreciate the board's time tonight in consideration of the application. I'm here mainly to answer any questions the board has, and I also have here David Maurer with Maurer Architecture. David he's not the architect of record. We have another company, Greenberg and Associates, who have a lot of historic hotel and multifamily and preservation work experience. I pulled David in as kind of ambassador, design ambassador and consultant for this development, just based on his extensive experience. I'm going to touch on a few points that I think are some key points in this application. I know this development has been a long time coming, and there's been a few different applications that have come through. Our last application was just a much bigger development. It had a hotel addition, rooftop bar, multiple restaurants, banquet facility. It's about a $25 million development, and the main thing there was it required, not only was it a much more difficult development to move forward with, it required new market tax credits, which really presented a huge variable in this, in getting the development done. We since shifted into what I think is a simpler approach. I worked with some of the leadership in the town and some local folks here who really recommended to keep the current footprint and don't go beyond that. So we started looking at that approach. And that is the approach that's in front of you today. It's just the existing footprint of the building. It is now a mixed-use development with some retail space, from hotel suites, and also some extended stay long-term apartments. One of the things we were questioning is, how does this hotel work? Because we don't have the room now to put fitness center, a banquet facility, and things inside. But the town has some great resources. So we're using more of a shared resource model. There's a gym across the street. There's plenty of great restaurants here in town. There's spas in town, and just great amenities that the town already has. So the hotel really becomes a place to go, rest in the evenings. Just want to touch on a few things the staff report has already covered, but just briefly, I think the existing land use class is downtown mixed use, which is exactly what this development is. Retail, hotel suites, extended stay, and long-term rentals. I think it lines up with the town's land use economic development goals, as Dwayne has outlined in his package. It's also what Dwayne has outlined was some of the key criteria associated with the SUP. Will not endanger public health. Will not injure value for adjoining properties. It actually, just getting the building fixed up should help improve it. Based on the land use plan, it's in harmony with the area and in conformity with the land use plan. Just wanted to mention those items again. As I mentioned previously, we have a great team on this. We have Greenberg and Associates, who have over 50 years of experience in architecture, and mainly focused on multifamily and hotels. They did a lot of historic renovations. We pulled in David Maurer from our architect. He's also here as well. If you guys have any questions about his background, he's involved in some developments right now in town, and just his firm has specialized in historic preservation and adaptive reuse work. He's been instrumental in helping us. We do have the Part 1 and Part 2 tax credits approved right now. And we got the SHPO approval, NPS approval. Timeline, I know that question has come up, and just to, I don't wanna overcommit to this right here, but here's where we go. We have the historic tax credits approved. If we were to get the local approvals, SUP approvals, we believe we can start construction within 1 year of getting the SUP approval. Now, there's also a requirement in the town, I think SUP is good for 1 year, so there's some control measures already in place. We definitely want to move this as quickly as possible, but just after the approvals, we're gonna need about 6 months or so to create design documents. Once we have the design documents done, that's when the bank will seriously underwrite it. That may take a few months there. So realistically, we believe within 8 to 12 months of the SUP, we can start this development. Those are the main points I had, and again, just welcome any questions the board has.
Okay, the floor is open, yes?
Oh, say, I was here when we first sold this building to you. That was a decade ago. That's a long time. Any papers that you needed to be signed should be signed. Why is it that I or the people in Edenton gonna believe that within a year you can start construction?
It's a good point. I don't want to make excuses here. I had one of my project managers looking at this development, and we made a lot of progress. The initial vision was just, I take responsibility for. It was, I wanted to do something much bigger than we have here, and it made it difficult. Then we did run into the COVID, and since then, it's been very difficult to get bank financing for development. About a year, I was still chasing that bigger vision, that $25 million build-out vision. We put a lot of time and energy into it. I personally got involved about 3 years ago. So for about a year and a half, we continued to push that larger development, and I wasn't able to pull it off. I could put it on different conditions around the new market tax credits, financing availability, but I take responsibility, I wasn't able to pull it off. This new vision for it, well, it's not done until it's done, has a much higher probability of getting done. It's a much more simpler approach. We already started talking to banks who have interest in this. I think that is the main difference that what we have in front of you today here. Is just a more simplified version of this project.
What, the initial project, the grand project, was projected cost of $25 million. What is it scaled down to now, projected to be?
About $9 million.
9?
Yes.
Well, I was gonna say, I think that, I've been here the whole time, we've been talking about it. I think that the concern on our part is, in a year, you don't start, then what? The building's just sitting there, I think that's our collective concern here. How do we, what happens if you don't, like last time you were able to start, this time you can't get your financing and that kind of stuff. We're still left with would you think you would sell the building at that point, or what?
I think I would be open to doing that. I want to see it done. If I can't get it done, I don't want to stand in the way. I think I would be open to that, yes. Right now, my focus is to do it. I think the momentum we have here and our plan is definitely much more focused this time around. But to answer your question, yes, we can explore other options.
Wouldn't it be easier right now just to give that offer? Just to be honest, I mean, it's been 10 years. Is it off the table to discuss it now?
I mean, right now, my focus is to move forward with it. We put a lot of time, I've put about a year into this new plan. We have a lot of time and money into it. You know, my focus is to move forward with it right now.
In the meantime, would you be willing to show good faith and clean up the building on the exterior?
Yes,
I mean, thoroughly, yeah. We have a lot of visitors to this community. Right now, it is an eyesore.
I'm happy to enter into those discussions with the town staff. We walked the building today and definitely, you know, there's a lot of leaves and dirt in the front of the building. We definitely will be cleaning that up. You know, pressure washing the front of the building now. Just, you know, we do want to come in there and do substantial work. I don't want to put substantial money into something that's going to be renovated, but absolutely, within reason, we definitely can clean up the building so it looks better than what it is right now. And I'm absolutely willing to do that.
We've got a 250th celebration of the Edenton Tea Party coming up in October. And a lot of the events will be in the downtown area. A lot of events will be in that corridor leading to the old courthouse and the town green. And so the leaves and the dirt and the appearance are a concern to us. And I know that's not directly tied to your rehab, but it would show a tremendous amount of good faith to this group and also to these citizens that have gathered here today if we can put our best foot forward
Yeah,
for that celebration.
I think what we're talking about is replacing some broken glass, especially in the back. Maybe some inexpensive Venetian blinds in the front. Cleaning the glass, Venetian blinds, front area just looks horrible.
Councilman Sellers, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, you mentioned that you've spoken with banks that are interested. And part of this process, at some point, you will get a letter of support from a bank, correct? And what does the bank require from you to provide that letter of support?
So to get I'm working with banks right now on some preliminary, based on the information right now and the proposed development. We've run some numbers on it, but again, we don't have a complete set of construction drawings. They're able to give us some preliminary terms. But to go and get a formal bank commitment letter, we're gonna have to have approvals in place. We're gonna have to have much more concrete bidded out numbers. And, so just to answer your question, to get a full commitment from a financing institution, we're gonna need approvals, we're gonna need some good construction numbers and plans for them to underwrite.
How long will it be before you can show proof of financing?
Well, right now, after, you know, if we were to get approvals to move this forward, it's a good 6 months of design documents, creating design documents. And that's going pretty quickly for development like this too. Again, I'm working with banks right now preliminarily because I don't want to wait to get them at least to show interest in the numbers right here. But to come back and have a concrete commitment, I would have to get through the design documents here, get some bids, the numbers right here. I'm not sure if they're gonna require a building permit, but they may before a commitment. So it would come after those design documents to get a firm commitment. But I starting to get a good gauge right now. And, because, you know, the tax credits, the low loans of value, we're putting in good money as well. Banks, while they're not fond of this type of development right now, they're showing good interest, just with banks we have relationships with.
So is that not a requirement of our application process to have design, some kind of design, rendering of some sort?
Well, at least for site design, yes, and that's what these are. But when we get further into the process for any type of technical review, that's when engineering documents come into play, where things are adjusted or amended as we move forward, because there'll be a lot of find and fix at that point. So typically for us, engineering plans aren't something that trigger a major special use, and it can simply be site design, which is more architectural based, which is what we have here.
So you said you're having the preliminary discussions now with those institutions, is that right?
Yes.
Just it had been a little proactive to start those conversations even before coming to us, being that it's gonna be a lengthy process. Is that something that could have been done previously?
I mean, we have started about 2 months ago with these banks. Some of them think it's premature right now without documents and stuff, but it's really been we're going to banks we have relationships with to at least just preliminarily underwrite. Is it something they're interested in? Is this loan size? Is this LTV? What type of terms are they looking at? You know, we're making good headway with them right now. So we are getting interest, and we're working on getting some preliminary term sheets.
Gotcha. So I stick with my initial question. So why did we have those preliminary discussions beforehand, before receiving what the tax credits that we're receiving, even before coming to this board and the board before? Couldn't we have initiated those conversations, beforehand?
Well, we did start those conversations before our planning board meeting as well. We started these about 2 months ago. I wanted to at least get the historic tap part ones, part twos, in hand. We started it before even our part two. Now, could we have started it another month or 2 earlier? We needed to have some package to give them. And so we just took some time to put together some initial budgets and a package that was meaningful enough for them to have at least a meaningful conversation.
Corey, can you tell all of us, and by that I mean council and also the general public here, what departments are made up of the technical review committee?
So for us, we go through all 5 departments, which includes administration and planning. We also have public works, electric, fire, and the police department. We also have various boards, including the tree committee and the preservation committee, that also have to provide recommendations based on the engineering plans for review. So for us, that process can take months. It's something that we can go through fairly quickly on smaller projects, but there are at least 5 departments and 2 committees that review these plans and make up that technical review committee.
And what point in the process does a technical review committee convene and make their requirements known?
So for us, typically, we can start some pre-con constructions around architectural plans, but there are things that are missing, such as load letters or static or residual flows around the water system or the fire system. So typically, those will be done when we get engineering drawings and plan that's in hand that supplements any type of architectural plans.
And is it typical if a permit is granted that the permit have conditions that the recommendations and orders of the TPC be followed?
Yes, and it varies. We see some projects where site plans come in initially for larger projects, and then engineering plans are soon to follow, and then vice versa. If there are some smaller plans Site plan, engineering plans may be the first documents that we see, but really for us, engineering plans are what trigger, any type of TRC review.
And is historic preservation's involvement a standalone hearing before that commission, or is their involvement a part of the larger TPC
It
process?
is a part of the larger.
Yes, I've got a question on that. So I think the parapets are wrong in these drawings. They use the wrong, model. These flankers on the outside were once almost freestanding looking buildings with a parapet that went all the way across. That's gone. It's gone in one of the early documentary photographs, but it exists in an earlier photograph that has been distributed, and it really changes the looks of the. I'm hoping that when it comes to the Preservation Commission, we get drawings that include this earlier version of this parapet. I mean, there was a lot of talk in town about they want to go back and hang balconies on the thing. I mean, that's not practical. That's absurd, actually, because they'd never get tax credits and P&T would never approve it. But these original parapets totally change the look of the building, and they are really, they sort of make it look much more like a building that should be in Edenton. And I'm hoping that gets done, you know, if we proceed, that we work on that. So, I mean, I'll be sending them to Corey to get to David or whoever, P&C, whoever needs to look at them. And for us, I can send around this thing, because it looks so much better in that drawing. So I'm hoping that's the kind of thing that gets handled in technical review. I mean, I don't know whether I want to make it a condition, but I think we need to, you know, that's the kind of thing that before it gets passed, it needs to have in there.
And those type of, details are reviewed and considered. I mean, from the conversation that would be had, for example, with the, EPC around details like that, down to something as simple as backflow requirements for the water system, or what type of testing is required for the fire system based on what the surrounding utilities can provide. So a lot of those details are really combed through.
Could we make that a condition? Is that?
I mean, that's definitely something that council can consider, but I mean, it is a formal process that we follow anyways.
He said he wanted to be built in about a year. Sounds more like 2 to 3 years before he can get everything together.
We'll follow up
Before he
on,
can get his permits, his loans, and all these committees he got to go through, but this a year ain't gonna do that.
I was gonna follow up on Councilman Bond's point. You said you'd like to start between 6 months and 12 months, and I think we, and everybody in this room would say, all right, 12 months at the very earliest. If we start in a year, when do you finish?
We met a contractor today. He does a lot of historic work. They estimated around 14 months complete, but, you know, let's add 2 more months to that. Let's say a 16 month, I think, is a very reasonable timeline for this after construction starts.
All right, so Corey, that'd be 28 months if we go 12 and then 16. Does that follow the National Park Service scheduled completion timeline?
We could go through that, but when we talk about the NPS Part 2, there's a 24-month window that apply to the expenses. And so that would be up to the developer and the contractor to allot those 24 months. And so if the project takes longer than that, you would still, in essence, pick the highest expense 24 months and have that overlap the project. And so, I mean, there's some flexibility there, but you do have to have a consistent 24-month window that is allotted. And if the project took 36 months, you would simply adjust that time scale to say these are the months that's being recorded.
In terms of somebody who's not in the industry and what those of us just walking around the street would call a traditional hotel room, how many of those are included in the proposed design?
So right now, we're planning the first 2 floors, there's 4 floors altogether. There's 15, what we call hotel suites, and 2 storefronts. And the second 2 floors has, I believe, 18, what we would like to operate as longer-term space apartments.
So, say for example, I'm coming in from out of town for a wedding and want to get here Thursday and stay through Sunday. There would be 18 of those rooms, that 15 that would be available for me to rent, much like if I was going to the Hampton Inn. I mean, not just what we traditionally, people out there call hotel or hotel suite.
Yeah, they're, let's say, bigger than the Hampton, typical Hampton Inn suite, so, but yes.
So is there opportunity for those upper rooms, if they're vacant, to be like hybrid, so you can kind of, extend it for like a traditional room on the lower floor versus an apartment, if there's a need for it?
Yes, now, there is some technical stuff there where, when you go through building code, what is it, is it a hotel room, is it an apartment? We're looking at giving this building good flexibility, where we may try to meet more rooms both, a long-term and the hotel from a building code standpoint. If hotel rooms, which many people think will really take off and do better, because if the hotel rooms work, they're gonna bring you more revenue. If there's a demand for it, we are building in some flexibility to go more that route. If there's less demand for it, then again, naturally, we can go the other route. Some of this is going to depend on market conditions, and, but that's how we plan to kind of open it up, it's just truly as a mixed use. Several different types of products, if you will.
Have you utilized this model in any of the other properties, the ones that are in Oakdale?
Yes, we've, what is a hotel room in operation? Well, it starts changing, it starts crossing with, what people use for Airbnb, vacation rentals, so it's starting to all really converge together in a way. So we do have experience, renting these types of rooms, on the beach.
Are you finding an eating facility on one of your retail spaces? An eating facility,
Eating?
restaurant or something? Or is it gonna be a ladies boutique, or what are we looking at in the retail space area?
We don't know what's going into retail spaces because some of this stuff we want to see what the demand is for it. My preference would be to put retail components there that really help benefit this hotel and this experience right here. So having some type of food service, limited. It's not like we're not planning to have a full-fledged restaurant with full-fledged hood and stuff like that. But, again, this is just all thinking right now. We gotta do plenty of more research on this. There are gonna be shelves. Idea is to certainly continue to work on that, even start the building construction and continue to work on what the best business is. We may come in there and put the storefront in there and just really continue to work on what the best businesses are. But I see, it'd be nice to have some type of bar on one side of it and some type of food service, because it would complement a hotel. Maybe some breakfast service or something like that, limited. Those are all conversations right now, but the main idea is to put something that complements the use.
Sir, ordinarily, I'm not a very skeptical person. But like I said, when y'all bought this place 10 years ago, you said you'd be in it within 4 years. Now it's looking like it's gonna be another, if you having a wedding, you better plan for 4 years from now. Now it's looking like it's gonna be a long period of time, you see. When you leave here, you go away. These people, I excuse me for saying these people, but the citizens of Edenton are steady talking about this hotel that's run down and getting worse by the day. So I thought this meeting, you'd be able to tell me X amount of time will be into construction and will be completed. What I'm hearing tonight, like I say, it might not be completed 4 years from now. Because you've got to get your finances, your banking, you've got to do your blueprints, you've got to get your architect, you've got to get the approval of the town and those different stations. So we're still looking at a whole lot of time here. You see, when it was first sold, I was under the ideal, and in 4 years, I've been sitting on top of the roof, watching the water, eating dinner. I'm not trying to be harsh or anything, but when reality sits in, and you're disappointed so much, you know, I'm just telling you like it is. And I know you don't want to hear it, because if I was in your position, I wouldn't want to hear it, but we've been disappointed for a decade here in Edenton about this hotel.
I've got a couple business model questions. One, there's nothing in your business model that would include any subsidized housing in this project, correct? And then in terms of if the permit were granted and you finish your project, will your company be the management company, or will that be contracted out to a third-party management company?
We have a management company in-house that we manage a lot of hospitality. Right now, the plan is to manage it in-house. I find that you're more committed, we have the ownership of the building, and but if there's a better fit for the management of this locally or regionally, we're gonna explore that as well.
Would management be at the hotel, or management live in Edenton, or is management gonna leave at the beach?
A lot of these hotels, from just, revenue management, driving business there, you could do that remotely. A lot of it is, the core things that have to be on site. If someone has to clean the room, someone has to be there during busy times. I think it's going to be a combination approach, where, again, some of the management needs to be here, definitely for turnover services, and there's other management that you can do it remotely.
So if there is strict conditions put on you that you have got to hit these conditions within 12 months, and you cannot hit those, where do you go from there? We're having a hard time here. The public's having a hard time here. Give me 10 years. We can't decide this thing in 10 minutes either. I mean, we got to have some backing and know that you take some ownership in this. And I'm trying to stay calm.
Okay, are there any more questions of the applicant? Okay, did you want the other people that are here with you to come forward and speak about any of the?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, before we start. Yeah, you're David
I am
Mauer.
David Mauer.
Okay, and you've got your hand raised. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth during your testimony?
I do, thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having me today. Just a little background. David Mauer with Mauer Architecture based in Raleigh. We're celebrating 33 years. I've been actually doing historic preservation work and historic tax credits for over 40 years. Well over 100 tax credit projects. I have done, personally been involved in owning 3 buildings, and now we're looking at 2 additional ones. We're currently working as a project architect for Kadish, so it's good to be in Edenton and for another project. I would like to just build a time frame, because that seems to be the biggest question so far. I was brought on, as was mentioned earlier, I am not the project architect. He's been working with Greenberg for a long time. Those guys made the building, they had all the drawings. I agreed to come on last November is when he called me and said, hey, would you be interested in being involved in this? I can't address, I don't pretend to address what happened before last November. I certainly have heard things, but I was not involved in the project prior to November. We agreed I would come on board and help with quality control, historic tax credits, scheduling, building code issues, design issues. We literally started from scratch in November, redesigning the interior to do these apartments and to create a flexible plan that would allow for hotel units and apartments. So we started all over in November of last year. We got through the design in probably February or March of this year, a plan that we could live with and we could turn back into the historic, for the historic tax credit. What's been approved prior was a part 1 and a part 2 for the bigger project. We had to file an amendment because obviously it's a different scope. So it wasn't a new part 2, it was an amendment to the previous one. We filed that in March. We got approval within 45 days from both state historic preservation office and National Park Service. I'm gonna go back and look at the pyramid stuff, make sure it's all right, because that's, we obviously want to get that right. At that point, we've been soliciting proposals from engineers to move forward. As Susan said, we met with C.T. Wilson, a contractor that's done historic preservation work across the state. So trying to build a team that can move this thing forward. Everybody in this room recognizes what's happened in the past, and we're trying to move forward. So as talking to banks, we are now looking at producing the construction drawings. As he said, it may take 6 months. He doesn't want to pull that trigger on that until we get the SUP approved. Obviously, if we don't have a deal, we don't move forward. We get that approved, we work through that in 6 months. We then start going through all the TRC, the COA approvals, all of that kind of stuff that we have to do, as well as getting more permanent pricing. We don't even have plumbing, mechanical, electrical drawings at this point, so we can't get accurate cost estimates, so the bank can't give us a guarantee on the loan. But C.T. Wilson is working on budget estimates, so we can continue that conversation. What I heard earlier is that you have 12 months from approval of SUP to do a building permit. Am I correct in that? So you've already built in a time frame. We have to get a building permit, so significant dollars and time is going to be spent over the next 12 months to get to a building permit. And we certainly will be updating staff as we go along as to where we are in the process. I mean, it's all internal of us doing the drawings at that point and getting approval. Obviously, if there's delays on TRC or something like that, we have to talk about that. But that gives you a 12-month window for us to pull a building permit. To your comment earlier, you're absolutely correct. The part 2, you have a 2-year window. And we didn't submit this as a phased project, which actually gives you 5 years. We have a 2-year window to spend the money and get the credit. Anything that goes beyond that is not eligible. So we have a pretty tight time frame to build it. Contractor C.T. Wilson said today 12 to 14 months. Now, can we start construction exactly a year from, 12 months from the approval of SUP? Probably not. But there should be a window of time before we'll have the permits, making sure we can start after the closing, and then, I'm not going to suggest anything today, but one of the conditions could be that construction begins within a certain amount of time after the building permit. That's one thing I've seen to guarantee that the work moves forward. But again, we have 2 years to do the work, 12 to 14 months, if he is a little bit optimistic. The last thing I want to say is about the historic tax credit. And for everybody, it is all or nothing. You don't get a credit for doing some things right and some things not right. Okay? So we're looking at $1.5 to $2 million worth of tax credits that are on the line if anything is not done right. So to the question of are we going to go through all the approvals on, we've got to. There's a significant amount of money online if we do not, everything. We do the wrong door casing. you lose $2 million worth of tax credits. That's one of the reasons I was brought on, to make sure that everything is done and follows all the requirements to get that. So with that being said, I'm open for any questions as well.
What, you had mentioned Kadesh, do you have any other projects you've worked on in this general area, like northeastern North Carolina?
Yeah, so the apartments up Broad on the right-hand side, I'm forgetting the name.
Habit Brothers.
I'm sorry?
The Habit Brothers.
The Habit Brothers, yeah, we actually came into town. Jennifer asked me to come in and talk about how to do upper level residential projects. I came in and did a talk and talk about historic tax credits. We did that project. I'm currently looking at a couple other projects.
And when you say it's all or nothing process with the tax credits, and if it's not done right, then you lose those tax credits. The definition is of it being done right is following all the requirements of the National Park Service. Is that your definition?
Yeah, so the part one is just, is it eligible? We clearly know it's eligible. Part two is what you plan to do to the building and with all the pieces and what you're gonna save and where the new finish is and all that stuff. All of that's been submitted. And what's in that application is actually binding. Okay? So we got all of that approved. When I did the amendment, there was probably 14 conditions on the first one because it had to do with rooftop deck and all that's gone, so a lot of it went away. We got unconditional approval on the amendment. Okay? When the project is done, we go back and we take photographs, standing in the same place the previous photographs are, and we say, see, we did what we said we were gonna do. And they will ask for more, more photos if we haven't photographed the document. But we submit a full photo documentary afterwards to show that we did what we promised we were gonna do. So we are bound to that. And we do not get, that goes to the State Historic Preservation Office. They might have some additional conditions to send some more photos. It gets sent up to the Park Service. That gets approved and sent to the IRS and to the North Carolina Department of Revenue. That's sort of the process.
And then they actually inspect the state store.
They do not inspect it. They do not. That's why the photos have to be so thorough. And for 5 years, it's a 5-year tax credit. Any changes that might occur after that's been approved are supposed to go back through the process for an approval, or at least an administrative review. So you can't go and just paint the building a week after you have the approvals, or do something that would violate the tax credits.
Do y'all have any more questions of Mr. Merrill?
So you guys have been approved for these tax credits before though, is that right?
I'm sorry?
You've been approved for these tax credits before, is that right?
So part one and part two have been approved, and the amendment have been approved.
So previously, you guys were able to take these tax credits. You didn't get them because the work wasn't completed, is that right?
No tax credits have been approved for this project, because you can't get approval until the work is formally done. Part one and part two have been approved, reviewed and approved by the State Historic Preservation Office as well as the National Park Service. But you don't get an actual approval until the work is actually done.
So you say you can get the tax credits at that point.
The intent of what we're trying to do is getting the drawings and all of that, and that has been approved.
I realize you're working with the Saga Group now on this project. Have you worked with them before on any other projects?
I have another architecture firm, Tightlands Designs, that does multifamily and single-family housing. We've worked with them in the past on some housing projects, but not historic.
Nothing historic.
Just, I think one of the reasons he asked me to join the team.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming. Maggie? And if you will, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth during your testimony this evening?
I do.
Okay, thank you, and please identify yourself so all of us know you.
Yes, sir. I am Maggie Gregg, and I am the Regional Director for Preservation North Carolina's Eastern Office. I started in 2016, so I've been working with Saga in this project since then, which was shortly after the sale of the property to Saga. We have continued to review the revisions of the plans in order to ensure that they comply with the covenants, to provide technical advice in order to try and move the project forward, and to continue to work with the team of consultants in order to ensure that it is meeting the Secretary of Interior standards as required by the covenants and by the National Park Service.
And in addition to the covenants, are there some separate, is there a separate document for architectural guidelines and more specific than the covenants?
The covenants themselves list the protected elements of the property that must be retained.
And, you know, we've heard a lot from Mr. Maurer about the process with National Park Service. How does your group work with the National Park Service and also the State Historic Office of Historic Preservation?
So those are separate approval processes. We do not rely on the National Park Service for approval, and they do not rely on us. However, we do follow the same guidelines, and that is the best practices, which are outlined in the Secretary of the Interior standards.
Just what other projects, I mean, besides the covenants on my house, what other buildings do you have covenants on at Edenton?
We have covenants on the entire Edenton Cotton Mill Village. I regularly work with waivers and design review on those properties. And then there are multiple individual historic buildings that have covenants on them. I didn't bring a full list of what those are, but I am still reviewing quite a bit of work in Edenton and ensuring that it complies with the covenants.
And is there an opportunity, or do we have any involvement with PNC during this process to work together?
I think we would make sure that we were advised on any type of time period, where they are in the project, any reviews that PNC has received. Have there been any changes or amendments to any rehabilitation agreement that's set out on the building? Are there any obstacles that we need to help navigate that may not be technically feasible once you determine the engineering plans and get in there, if there's anything that we have to adjust? I mean, so there'll be an active part of this technical review committee, because the recommendation for any of these department heads and any of these boards is to make sure that the National Park Service's expectations, as well as Preservation North Carolina's expectations, are followed. And so if something comes up that challenges that, that's when we would reach back out to them and advise them, here's where we are, this is what we found, this is the problem, how do we proceed going forward if this is what the requirements are.
So PNC obviously has a right to enforce its own covenants. Can we place it as a condition of our authority that the PNC covenants be followed, so that we have some authority over that also?
I think that is a reasonable condition that could be added.
And the way that it works with, I mean, it's basically, they have their rules, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says, they can enforce their own rules. And Maggie, if you would just tell them about a lot of people have had a lot of questions about this rehabilitation agreement. If you would just kind of go over that and sort of lay that out, and then sort of talk about why or why not you enforce those agreements.
Sure. So the rehabilitation agreement is an initial document that looks at the initial plans and the initial proposed timeline. Often in projects, construction projects, especially of larger scale, those timelines shift, those plans shift. This is not the only rehabilitation agreement that we've had to go back and say, the deadlines have shifted, your plans have shifted, you're no longer doing an addition, you're no longer doing the rooftop bar, you're no longer doing, and so it is not unusual as a project changes for us to go back and have to make that shift with the rehabilitation agreement. And we have continued to do that as this project has continued to shift. We've had meetings with Corey, I've been here before the council once before. I've had meetings with Saga, multiple meetings with Saga, both on-site and virtually. Periodically, we are adjusting those rehabilitation expectations based on the necessity of the project altering.
But you ultimately have the right to force it, to force a rehabilitation. PNC does, not you personally.
Well, I mean, we could refuse to alter a rehabilitation agreement. When we're considering whether we're going to refuse to alter it, we're looking at all of these steps that are being discussed tonight. Should we say that we would not approve a new rehabilitation, you're looking at going back, finding someone to purchase the property, finding someone to do preliminary designs, finding someone who is going to do a part 1, a part 2, apply for a special use permit. You're starting the process all over again. And so because Saga has continued to submit different plans, they've continued to pursue plans, they've continued to pursue financing. They've shown that the process is moving forward, and we took into consideration what the timeline would look like if we added those steps back as well.
And I think sort of the concern, you know, I'm just gonna put sort of, I mean, you've heard it already, but the concern is it doesn't start in a year or 2 years. Then, I mean, would y'all be willing to then go forward with, you know, to force something to happen?
We've already discussed that with Smith, that at a certain point, this is the farthest it's come in terms of the special use permit. Again, we've been looking at what a restart of that clock looks like, but we have had the discussion about there is a point where if this cannot be done, then he's gonna need to look at selling it, and as he said to you tonight, he's agreeable to that.
Thank you so much for all you do.
You gentlemen have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
For coming tonight.
Yes, sir.
And does it have any more, you don't have any more people here? Okay. All right, the next part of the public hearing on this is actually the public hearing where we hear from the public. The public can speak, and we welcome you to speak. Your comments are limited to 3 minutes, as they usually are, and as we normally do, we have you sign up, and we'll go through the order as you signed up. Our first person that has signed up is Hal Murray. Hal, come forward.
Mayor, you wanna get them all to stand up and swear at one time?
That might be easier. Thank you, Attorney Ellis. I'm not going to read the names, but you know if you signed up to offer public comment tonight, so I'd ask that all of you who signed up, please stand. Okay, raise your right hand. Do each of you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth during your testimony this evening?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And JD, did you want to be added to this?
The clipboard was still out here, so I'd actually put my name on
Okay,
it.
are there any other names there?
I can check, sir. No, sir, looks like it's just me.
Okay. All right, Mr. Murray, come forward.
I went to the public meeting on the hearing last Friday. It was hard to see that the council was there to hear the concerns of the people of Edenton. I heard a lot of frustrated voices, people feeling as if they had been sold a bill of goods, trapped into something out of their control, and powerless because of Saga. I'm not here to defend Saga. I'm here to remind us all there's plenty of blame to go around. We, the residents of Edenton, or where we are today with that Hotel Hinton, not solely because of Saga. Saga alone could not have done this by themselves. The town councils over the last 10 years, managers and other officials of the last decade, through their good intentions, failed actions, lack of clearly thought out initiatives, dearth of decisive decisions, have a share in guiding us where we are today. I bring this forward in hopes that the present town council, under the able leadership of Mayor High, will act decisively, intelligently, with clear sense of purpose and vision, while not repeating the blunders of the past. The town council is not powerless in this situation. There are options at their disposal, but a clear vision of the end product, a robust business plan is needed if we as a community are to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. Yes. Our next speaker is Kim Ringleson. Kim?
Thank you, good evening. I heard a lot of ifs and dependencies in today's discussion, but I did not hear a plan. I did not find a rehabilitation schedule in the documented plan addressing timelines in the packet concerning traffic, construction impact on the community. There was only a generic answer that the rehabilitation and hotel would benefit the community. There are no details outside of architectural drawings.
Since the developer has owned the building, it has continued to deteriorate, which has caused great distress in the community, as outlined in the press and through various community meetings. The town has the authority to deny permits when legitimate concerns about a developer's past performance, financial viability to complete the project, or the potential for continued negative impact on the community are present, as well as consideration to the 4 findings that the council is charged to find with. The neglect and negative impacts on the community indicate that this development may remain a burden rather than an improvement. The developer's apparent lack of a clear and credible plan continue with their negative track record related to the Edenton Hotel provides a strong argument against approving the permit. Additionally, the developer's reported past negligence, past neglect and inability to meet agreements or secure funding present a significant risk to the town and community justifying the permit's denial. It might be time to pass the torch, as questioned by Councilmember Turner, so the community can move on after a decade of inaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Tammy, does that microphone work when you have it out of the stand? Mr. Collins, do you just want to stand there and we give you the microphone? Would that be easier, Tammy?
I can move over, it's okay.
Okay.
Good evening, councillors. I would like to begin by reminding councillors that Saga have had a previous unsuccessful project in Edenton. There was to be a housing development that ran from behind the Shell station on Virginia Road across to Paradise Road. And the only thing, as far as I'm aware, that has ever been built is the road linking across. This does not augur well for any promises they make for the future now for Hotel Hinton. In terms of the town's need for more hotel rooms, 15 rooms in Hotel Hinton is not going to make a vast difference. And I understand that there is a project afoot for a new hotel behind the Speedway on Virginia Road. I don't have any details of it. I moved from central London to Edenton 28 years ago to get married here. When I lived in central London, the Greater London Council moved the large fruit and vegetable and flower market from Covent Garden to Nine Elms. Having done so, there was a lot of discussion of what should be done with the empty market buildings in Covent Garden. And the Greater London Council wanted to take advice from local residents and businesses still functioning in the area. So they created something called the Covent Garden Forum. And I was elected by local residents to serve as a residents' representative on the Covent Garden Forum. It became painfully apparent that developers could never be trusted, particularly if you did not put time limits and financial penalties in any agreement with them. And finally, I agree with the last speaker that it would just be inviting unnecessary further delay to approve this special use permit.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Our next speaker is Karen Foley.
Hi, good evening. I'm Karen Foley. I kind of see we've got two pieces here. We have one issue, which is the horrendous look of the building and the maintenance of the building. And then we have whether or not you want to go forward with these individuals to pursue building the hotel or whatever the multi-faceted project's going to be. I handed out before the meeting 4 documents, and I'm here really to address the issue with the current state of affairs in the building. And so the first document I gave you was a little bit of a chart. And this chart comes from the Repair of Non-Residential Buildings, North Carolina's Local Government Authority. I'm sure you're probably all already aware of all of those details, and that's pretty much how we came up with the 4 or 5 different points that you want to discuss to put on extra conditions. You know, just being here 3 years and touring around to a lot of these little towns, Williamston, Windsor, you know, you name it, they all have conditions, they all have problems. We just happen to have one big one sitting in the middle of our historic area. And so what I've given you is a letter that went out to all the property owners in July 3rd, 2024 in Williamston, where they are putting into effect a vacancy ordinance for the Central Business District of Williamston. And in there, following the guidelines on number 1, they explain it in number 2, which is basically saying, giving everybody a 30-day warning on what they're going to expect from people that own buildings that are in disrepair. And then to number 3, which is the Williamston ordinance related to vacancies in their central business district, where they really, really define it all the way down to fines. And I found this document to be really quite a check and balance, let's call it. Because you don't do what you say you're going to do, you're going to get fined by the day. And then the 4th one in my research that I thought was really well written was the town of Smithfield in North Carolina, where their regulations, again, going back to what North Carolina allows, is pretty specific. So I think maybe our time has passed in regards to having a ordinance that really spells out really 160D. And I don't know, as far as I can find, we don't have one. I know you're not supposed to respond back to me, but I don't think we do have one.
Well, I appreciate you bringing this information
Yeah,
forward.
I think that you might find some really great details, and whether you go forward or not, the building is sitting there and we don't own it. So we might as well get these things down in writing and let them know where it's coming from by finding them, if they don't do it. Whether you agree with the whole long-term thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Deborah Miller. Deborah?
Good evening, everybody. I'm here in terms of Saga being represented here. I keep hearing in terms of getting applications and what have you, will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting property. I've lived in my home in Edenton for 45 years now. Had a ditch run in the back of my property drained. Summer came, put in a new ditch, my property now floods. So thank you, Saga, for the lake that I now receive. Got beautiful white caps if the wind is blowing properly, what have you. I don't understand even considering Saga doing anything in this town again, seriously speaking. As well as the flooding, I have this beautiful, beautiful fence that runs the property that's falling apart, deteriorating, lined with fire ants. I have weed control, etc. Just thank you so much. And I have one question, and I know you guys are looking at questions, but am I correct that you answer questions in following meetings? Can anybody tell me that?
We can probably, yes, we normally have
This doesn't relate to this, but it's a question I do have.
well, you addressed some concerns last week, and we can consider that as a part of the manager's report.
Okay,
He will look into it.
Okay.
But yes, we do have a manager's report on each agenda.
Then what my one question is, the statue up front, can I find out why it was moved from the courthouse to the place it is now located out front? Thank you.
Next, we got Patrick Bablow. Patrick.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everybody for attending the community meeting the other day at the square. I thought it was pretty profound as that meeting started that the church bells were tolling, because that's how America started. Everybody was called to a community meeting by the church bells, by the bells of the courthouse. So anyway, thank you for that. A couple things keep coming up, and I just want to address them because I just am not getting answers. During the special use permit, people from Saga were asked if they had ever built a historic hotel, and the answer was no. But we do have an architect that does. I didn't hear that answer tonight by Mr. Seller's question. That concerns me. The other safety concern, and this is top of the list, is has all the asbestos been removed from the building? To which the response was, I'm not sure. Under North Carolina permits, no person shall engage in asbestos abatement involving more than 35 cubic feet without working with the state. How do you not know? I watched the asbestos being taken out of the building for 2 years, or the summer 2 years ago when they cleared the building. I spoke with the people that were removing it. A little bit more than 35 cubic feet. Is that a violation? I don't know. So, again, I'm with Elton on a lot of things here. 10 years, it's just not getting answered. It's not getting taken care of. The 160D amendment that Karen just specified, 160D 107, I would like to ask the town council to consider placing a moratorium on this process. That can give you 60 days, that can give you 90 days. I would just request that things are moving too fast. And to Elvin's point, nothing moved in 10 years. Why now? And if this was started in November, where are the schematics and where you just saw the Harbortown Ferry 2 weeks ago put up a plethora of information. Everything was detailed, everything was spelled out. In my 45 years of working in retail, opening stores all across this country, it doesn't take this long, folks. You come in with your financing, you come in with your diagrams, you come in with your drawings. There's a 6-point process in all new store builds, new store renovations, old store renovations. It's not that tough. You can get it done quicker and faster. I've seen people do it. And then in response to the final question, there's people waiting in the wings to come in and take this building. And they can't, the Cavalier, I mean, go to Virginia Beach, come on folks. We've all seen what happened. Look at the Texas Roadhouse up there in Elizabeth City. That place is up and running in 3 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Next, we got Lori. Lori Devlin.
Thank you for the chance to speak yet again. As I reviewed the criteria that's under consideration by the Town Council in regard to a vote on Saga's major special use permit application packet, I reflected on the fact that when a community has had the benefit of having prior experience with an applicant, it's a pretty reliable indicator of whether or not that applicant and his prospective development plan can actually deliver the following. Will not endanger the public health or safety. Will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting property. Will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. Will be in conformity with the land use plan, thoroughfare plan, or other officially adopted by the Town Council. Given the fact that Saga has already allowed the Hotel Hinton to become a safety risk for the public, how in the world can any thinking person assume that Saga would build in public safety and health into their present plan and application? Without a traffic impact study of the drop-off area on East King, that is a really tight corridor there. How how can any rational person possibly evaluate whether or not the value of the adjoining or abutting properties can be negatively impacted? No traffic impact study. And how in the real world of Edenton's living history can a Soviet era, I guess this is the drawing, I'm really confused, I mean it's in the packet, but how does a Soviet era military hospital looking design even begin to be remotely in harmony with this area? In the permit application, what you really have is a stack of papers. Without a reliable applicant, an experienced applicant to deliver it, it means nothing. And when you consider the applicant's 10 years of failure to comply with legal covenants that were already in place when they purchased the property in 2015, how in the world can you come to any other reasonable conclusion that he will fail to honor any conditions that you decide to put on an approval all over again? Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Next, we've got Pat Grother. Pat?
The questions have been answered.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Our next speaker who signed up, Dawson Tyler. Dawson, if you'll come forward.
Yes, thank you. I have a little bit of a different view on this than the prior speaker. So I've been engaged in discussions with Saga for the better part of the past 4 years. Those discussions have ranged from mainly trying to convince Summit to sell the building to somebody that's in the historic preservation realm. He and I have gotten to know each other over the course of that time, and recently, as recently as last year, as he was talking about the grander plan that he had put forth, I think Summit sitting down with other Edenton concerned citizens kind of changed course. Started listening to the folks that live here, that are involved in historic preservation, that care deeply about the story that's told in Edenton, and believe that that building is an extension of all the great public sites that we have in Edenton and needs to tell that story. Summit is the owner of the building. He owns it. Can't force him to get rid of it. He has committed to us that he is going to listen to town members. In fact, today he had a group of members of the town that are involved in historic preservation, and said, look, I want to get all you together to get ideas about what we do in this lobby to make this really reflect Edenton and be a jumping off point for people that stay here to go out and see all the wonderful things that Edenton has to offer. So my viewpoint is you have time period restrictions put in place that we've discussed tonight. He owns the building. He's engaged with the town. He's engaged with people that are involved in this space and involved in doing what I think all of you want to have done with that hotel. And, I think it's time that we flip it on its head a little bit and push him in a good way to get this done. So I would be in favor of you supporting the approval of the permit.
Thank you, Dawson. Our next speaker is Chesson. Chess?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm here speaking on behalf of Destination Downtown Edenton and trying to highlight the economic impacts. I think we all anecdotally think and want this building to produce. I've been working with Mr. Gupta for a number of months now, trying to get to this process where we can have a way forward and a path forward, knowing that we're going to have 33 units downtown. We might need a full boutique hotel. We're short on hotel rooms. We also need residential. We need rental units. We need all of it. We know that Bringing a resident downtown equates to anywhere from $11,000 to $15,000 in retail spending. Bringing visitors is more variable based on how often the rooms are utilized. But it's a certain need that we have downtown, and getting this, PNC mentioned it tonight, restarting this process is going to put us back another 12 to 18 months at the very least, trying to find a buyer to take over the project. Getting the project moving will create retail spaces at the 1,000 to 1,500 square foot mark, which is where when people come to me looking for commercial space, that's the sweet spot that we do not have right now in Edenton. We have 3 large vacant buildings that are all kind of in a similar process of getting developed, and moving forward, we have nothing in that 1,500 to 1,000 square foot space. And then net, I think it'll generate one, property tax and investment in the community, as well as incentivize and bring in that sales tax revenue and help the retail business owners that live and operate and make their living downtown. So I'm all for timelines and creating some checks and balances in the system, but I think moving forward with a permit, special use permit, is for the betterment of Eden. Thank you.
Thank you, Chess. And our next speaker is John Grant. JD, come forward.
Didn't escape after all, Mr. Mayor.
I know you don't. I'm glad you're here, though. You told me you wouldn't be here.
I didn't think I was going to make it, but it seemed to have gone on long enough that it did.
Okay. Well,
before you start my time, I would respectfully request that I'm sure all of you all got my packet with the exhibits and my request. And I'm requesting, and I don't know if Mr. Ellis was made aware of that I believe that the packet is flawed, that the application process was flawed, and therefore you cannot vote on it until it is resubmitted correctly.
We're not going to answer that. We're going to consider that at
Okay.
the appropriate
All
time.
right.
But
Fair.
we're not going to answer that here.
All right, well then I would note, as part of the packet, I provided a timeline, which has shown time and time again. We've been here, we've heard, I have an investor, I have a person who can do the work, I have the tax credits in line. And I just want to make sure everyone's clear. The only person who can grant actual tax credits is the IRS. It's not the National Park Service. They can say that it's a historic building, that the plan to rehabilitate is correct, and that the work is done correctly. But the IRS makes the final decision. So I would caution anybody that does the work that they do their due diligence to make sure that they're not stepping in a bear trap. I just heard that several town members were involved in discussions with Mr. Gupta. Per the UDO, he's required with residences inside a building to have meetings with the local businesses and the local residents that are adjacent to that property. That's never been done. And he made it specifically clear in the planning meeting that he doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to talk to staff. He doesn't want to have to report to the board meetings where people can ask questions or bring up concerns. He only wants to talk to you. And that is not a good look. Because the one thing you all have done since the beginning has been transparent, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. That kind of action is not transparency, sir. And I would caution you to do business with somebody who that's their thought process. Thank you.
Thank you, JD. That closes the public comment portion of this public hearing. Council has had the benefit of recently going through this process. It was certainly not this high profile, certainly not this complex and controversial. So you guys remember that the process involves us having to answer 4 or make 4 findings in the affirmative before we could even get to a question on the ultimate issue of whether or not to grant this permit. So at this point, it would be appropriate for me to entertain motions.
Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Yeah, that's probably the only time I'll ever say that. I will like to make a motion to table this. I think we have a whole lot to talk about. I think we have a whole lot to think about. And I think we need to, if we're going to add conditions or whatever, I think we need time to meet with the staff and craft those conditions. So I would just make that motion to table it tonight, not make a decision.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Good
Um,
Good idea.
It's a good idea.
Good idea.
Took 10
Yeah,
years to
I-
get here, I want to do it in 10 minutes.
Well, I took notes, and being the lawyer that I am, when I take notes, if I really want to refer back to something, I draw stars beside it so I can go back. And Councilman Bond started, by reminding us it's been 9-10 years. It's been a 9 or 10-year process. And so there could be some impatience on our part or impatience on the town's part, but at the same time, this is too important, I think, to rush it. And we have heard information tonight that we've not heard before. We've heard information that in this forum as a group, the first time we're hearing it. And not only has the current owner had the property since 2015, it's been vacant since 2012. And I think it's important that we get this right, and I think the applicant is looking to us for answers, and the townspeople are looking to us for answers. And quite honestly, having considered and heard everything tonight, I have more questions than I have answers for either the applicant or the people gathered here. And so, and a lot of those questions are questions that I have of our attorney. So your motion's been made, it's been seconded, and I would envision that we would ask our attorney what type of conditions we can put on what we can do, what we can't do, and then reconvene with notice to the public when we do reconvene, when we have more answers and not so many questions. But I only vote if there's a tie, but right now I have too many questions to move forward in an educated, productive way. So I don't have a problem with it. So does anybody else feel the same way or feel differently? Think it's a good idea? Okay. We've got a motion and second, and Councilman Dixon, your motion is to table it and take it under advisement.
We can decide when we'll put it back on.
Okay. All right, well, we've got a motion and second. All in favor of tabling it and taking this matter under advisement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, it's been a long night, but when you had a long day in court, and it reminds me, more than a couple of years ago, I had a long week in court, and I was called upon to pray in church. And I opened my prayer by saying, Your Honor.
And we had court in the funeral home today.
Yeah. And so that was reminiscent of that. But in any event, I appreciate the applicant being here. I know it wasn't easy, and as we indicated to the public, privately and publicly, we do appreciate your input. We have listened and we continue to listen. And that having been said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. Okay, we got a bunch of motions and a bunch of seconds. Everybody in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Adjourn. Thank you.